Hello professionals. Before I start this webinar, let me introduce myself. I am Mr. Monu Kumar Jha, Senior Pharmacist at CGHS, Government of India. Before we begin, I would like to thank each and every one of you who are eagerly waiting for this webinar to start. At the same time, I also acknowledge the CHEARS team for selecting me to give a webinar on this special topic, that is identifying SSFFC drugs, a challenge for health sector. So without much delay, let us start this webinar. So let us understand what are SSFFC drugs. So SSFFC drug, they stand for Substandard, Spurious, Falsely Labeled, Falsified and Counterfeit drugs. Now we need to understand that there is no universally agreed definition of counterfeit medicines. So different regions, different countries, they use their own term to describe these counterfeit medicines. So here we will use definition given by WHO for all these terms, right? Like for substandard, the definition is medicines that are outside of specification, which exclude genuine manufacturing errors, but may include intentional, reckless or negligent errors. Similarly, spurious, it is the terminology used in South Asia for products which are falsely labeled or intended to deceive. Then falsely labeled, it includes genuine product with false packaging. Falsified is the term used by European countries to include a deliberate intention to deceive. And counterfeit is a deliberate attempt to imitate a genuine product, which mainly focus on IPR, that is intellectual property rights. So basically all these terms, they mean one and the same. That means they are the fake drugs, they are the spurious drugs. Okay, so for our general understanding, we will understand this as any drug which is not genuine will fall under SSFFC drugs. Then the counterfeit products may include the following conditions. That is, they may include products with correct ingredients, but the ingredients won't be sufficient, insufficient quantities of API, or it may include expired API. So the drug will basically fail to give the desired effect. Then wrong ingredients. So this is possibly toxic and therefore directly harmful to patients. Or it may include without any active ingredients, just like a placebo. It won't have any API. So it will be harmful if patients do not get their disease treated correctly. And also it may include with false or misleading packaging. So these are the conditions of various conditions of counterfeit products. Now look at this tablets. Okay, this is the Lipitor tablet of Pfizer. Now can you tell the difference, which one is genuine or which one is false or counterfeit drug? So basically it is impossible to tell the difference. Okay, both tablet looks one and the same. So we can imagine how big is the challenge of identifying these spurious drugs, the counterfeit drugs. It's a challenging task. So India, it is capital of counterfeit drugs. This is because according to WHO statistics on counterfeit products, India is a producer of 35% of counterfeit drugs, followed by Nigeria, which is 23%, and Pakistan 15%. So only these three countries altogether produces almost 75% of counterfeit drugs of the world. So this is to be worried, as India ranks first in producing counterfeit drugs, 35%. It is really a huge number. Then pharma industry, they are rising at the rate of 20% annually. This includes pharma industry producing genuine medicine along with spurious drugs. That means the drugs which will cause harmful effect is also rising proportionately with the genuine drugs. So a challenging situation. Now the business of these spurious drugs, they flourish especially in the state of Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra and Karnataka. So these are the states where you can find there is more production of counterfeit drugs. And according to 24th Booming Biz report by industry body SOCHAM, 25% of medicines sold in India are fake, counterfeit or substandard. That means every fourth drug that we take may be a counterfeit drug. So we can imagine how challenging the situation is. Now let us see what are the ingredients which can be found in counterfeit medicines. Now the ingredients may include boric acid, leaded highway paint, floor polish, heavy metals like nickels, arsenic, brick dust. So a counterfeiter they don't care what they give. They can give you anything, including heavy metals which are poison to our body. So that this is the situation which we have to take care. Imagine taking heavy metals, nickels, arsenic, lead, and what else and what not. So it is a grave situation, and we have to be worried of this SSFFC drugs. Now let us look at the production site of these drugs. Now the image to the left shows a normal pharma industry setup, okay, which follows GMP and CGMP guidelines to produce hygienic and genuine products, whereas the image to the bottom right, they represent the counterfeit drug producing area or site. Just look at the images, how horrifying it is, right? Forget about GMP guidelines. You can't expect any GMP guidelines to be followed by such producers. So just imagine how dangerous these drugs are. Now let us see the factors which contributes to rise in counterfeiting of drugs. There are n number of factors like under-regulated wholesalers and repackagers. So the countries where there is under-regulation in wholesale and repackaging, it is quite easier for the counterfeiters to introduce their products into the market. Then the second is inefficient cooperation between stakeholders. Now it is very important to have a cooperation between all the stakeholders like police, the regulatory person, the customs and the judicial. In the inefficient cooperation, what happens is that it is very easy for the criminals to escape arrest or escape from the judicial custodies. Therefore, the countries, in order to combat this SSFC drugs, they need to emphasize on cooperation between all these stakeholders. Then demand exceeding supply. Now this is an ideal situation for the counterfeiters. When the supply of the genuine drugs is less and the demand is more, it becomes very easy for counterfeiters to infuse their products in place of genuine products. So this is also a very important factor. Then a major factor is internet pharmacies. The online pharmacies is a grave challenge in terms of SSFFC drugs, because there are n number of websites which are fake, which are not genuine, okay, which can easily infuse these SSFC drugs into the consumer. Because even there are even the regulations to control these online pharmacies are very weak in our country. So internet pharmacies a big challenge in terms of controlling SSFC drugs. Advancement in technology. With the advancement of technology, it becomes very easy for counterfeiters to manufacture the drug which looks exactly like a genuine drug, but it will be a spurious drug. So this is the grave challenge again for SSFFC. Then highly pressurized marketing practices. Okay, in our country, there is a target system. There are highly pressurized marketing systems wherein you need to generate sales. So what happens with this highly pressurized marketing practices is that many times bills are generated on the names of government hospitals, and this medicine do not reach the hospital at all. In fact, these medicines, they enter the black marketing. So this is a great situation for SSFFC drugs. So these are all the factors which can contribute for a rise in counterfeiting drugs. Now let us see the consequences. What will happen if I take a spurious drug? So the consequences, they can be categorized into two, at patient level and at society level. So at patient level, what can happen is there can be worsening of medical condition. Obviously, if you do not take the correct medicine, the medical condition will worsen. Then treatment failure or resistance. Now this is a big challenge. If you do not take the right medicine, right antibiotic, okay, suddenly if you take fake medicine, fake antibiotic, this can give this can make you a resistance to that genuine drug. Then shift to a second line treatment. Now once you take these counterfeit drugs, it is quite obvious that it won't be effective, so then the doctor will switch to second line of drugs. So these are the challenges at patient level. At society level, okay, antimicrobial resistance, a big challenge in terms of society, because whatever antibiotics we are having, they will become useless with a rise in resistance. Currently, if you are using first generation, then you can be resistant. You have to go for second generation. If you become resistant, you can go for third generation and fourth generation. And if you become resistant to this also, then you do not have fifth generation. So this is a great challenge to the society. All your antibiotics, antimicrobials, they will become waste. Then increased expenditure in healthcare system. Now this happens because of the failure of the first line treatment, you shift to second line treatment. So there is an additional cost because of the second line treatment. Also the number of visits the patient undertakes will increase with the failure of the primary treatment. So this will add to the expenditure of healthcare system. Then diversion of funds to organized crimes. Now we need to understand that the drug traffickers, the criminals who smuggles drugs, it is very easy for them to to smuggle these spurious drugs because of weak regulations. Rather than smuggling heroin, cocaine, and so on, it is very easy to smuggle these SSFFC drugs. Okay, so these funds which are generated through these crimes, they are used for terrorism and other kinds of crimes. So this is a big challenge again to the society. Then to erode public trust and confidence in health system with the failure of the primary treatment, then the secondary treatment, and so on. The person, they will lose trust with the health system as well as the pharma companies. Okay, so once the trust is broken, it is very difficult, to motivate your patients to continue treatment and to be okay. So these are the consequences which are associated with your SSFFC drugs. Now next is how to detect these SSFFC drugs. Now detecting this is very important because this is the only way we can be sure that our drugs is a genuine and not fake. So let us see what are the techniques which are available to detect these kinds of drugs. So first is visual inspection. The most easiest way is by visually examining the drug or the formulation. So be it the labeling or the packaging or the drug itself, the formulation itself, any minute changes in uh, all these cases will give an indication of drug to be a fake drug. So if you observe any kind of changes, you be as a consumer or as a pharmacist, the roles of both are important here. So being a pharmacist or a consumer, if you find any changes of the formulation that you have taken from the previous one, you have to bring into the notice of the state regulatory authorities, who will then carry out the investigation to find out whether it is a fake drug or not. The next is color-based kits. Now this is a very interesting facility available to detect these fake drugs. Now this is specially used for anti-malarial drugs. So these kits, they will contain certain chemicals. So when these drugs are mixed with these chemicals in the kit, it will change to a particular color. So the authentic drugs will produce a specific color which will not be produced by your fake drugs. So it is one of the good technique that is available to detect fake drugs. Next is selection of suppliers. Now this is very important. Being a retail pharmacist, it is very important that you should always procure medicine from a well-known authorized wholesalers of the company, because this is the place where the counterfeiters, they can enter your market uh, through your retail. So it is very important that the suppliers should be selected. The history of the suppliers should be checked properly before selecting them, and also some records are there on the website, different websites, where they mention the authorized suppliers of certain drugs like Schedule X drugs or veterinary drugs and so on. So always procure your medicine from these authorized suppliers. Then is next is documented pedigree. Now what is pedigree? Pedigree is basically a documented evidence of chain of custody. That means the drugs, they enter from the manufacturers to the wholesalers, from wholesaler to the retailers, retailer to the consumer, and so on. So all the prescription drugs, before reaches the consumer, there has to be a documented evidence of chain of custody. So this can be done in two ways. It can be done by either a manual pedigree. That means manually on paper it will be all the records will be maintained, or another approach is through e-pedigree. E-pedigree means online technique. So advantage of e-pedigree is that the manipulation is very difficult in the e-pedigree. It is very difficult to forge the e-signatures, and also the whenever you required records, it is very easily available, and it takes less money to store all these documents for a longer period of time. So it is always preferred to go for e-pedigree rather than a manual documented pedigree. So this is another technique in which we can detect SSFFC. Then feedback. Feedback from the consumer or the administrator of the drug. Both are important. So if you find that during administration there were certain changes in the drug or the medicine, or after taking the medicine the patient is not getting the desired effect, then such person, they should report to the retail pharmacist, who then should report it back to the company or to the regulatory authority for investigation. So feedback is very important, in which you can detect SSFC drugs. Next is technology for authentication. So different technologies are available to authenticate drugs. One such technique is So this hologram is a technique wherein the diffraction property of the light is used. So because of the diffraction of a light, image field is generated. So this is very unique for the product. But again, the disadvantage is that these holograms, they can be counterfeited easily. So this is again not that much reliable method. So there are other novel techniques by which you can detect these fake drugs. So next one is like barcodes. Now barcodes, these are common with many products. Okay, these are codes which are assigned to certain lines which are uh, black and white in color. So the various details like the lot number, expiry, and so on, they can be fed in these bars as a code, hidden code, which when scanned will give you the details. So this is a very good method um, of detecting fake drugs. And next is radio frequency identification. So this RFID tags, this uses the property of radio frequency again to store the details of the batch. So this is another technique. Next is Pedigree. Pedigree is mobile based SMS service technique wherein a unique code is given to each product, okay, which when consumer receives it, he sends that unique code through SMS, mobile SMS, to the assigned number, and he gets all the details whether the particular product he has received is genuine or fake. So here you can see in our picture, the first picture is a holographic image, then second image is the Pedigree. So you can see this unique code is assigned which we have to send to this number. So once the message is received to this number, they will verify it and they will authenticate whether it is a genuine drug or not. And this is the barcode which we have seen in many products, not only medicine but other products also. It is very common. So what happens in Pedigree? First you have to scratch the area where the code is written. So this is just like your recharge voucher. In the same way, you have to scratch with the coin. So you get the unique code which you have to type through any mobile. Even a simple basic mobile phone is enough to use this facility. So you type this unique code and send to the assigned number, and then you get a reply from the company that whether this medicine is genuine or not. So this is a novel technique. Then next is Raman spectroscopy. This is a very good technique. Raman spectroscopy can be used widely to detect fake drugs. So in this, it uses the principle of absorption of lambda max, that is the maximum absorption wavelength. So the sample is taken, it is analyzed using this Raman spectrometer, and the result is obtained whether the drug is fake or not. So Raman spectroscopy is a very reliable method and should be used to detect the SSFC drugs frequently. So that was different techniques to detect SSFFC drugs. Now, what are the measures taken at international and national level? So at international level, in the year 2006, a task force was set up by WHO, that is World Health Organization, called as IMPACT. So what is IMPACT? It is International Medical Product Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force. So the basic aim of this task force was to control the sale trade of these counterfeit drugs across the globe. So basically how it works is by establishing a partnership with the international organizations, with the enforcing agencies, with the manufacturing pharmaceutical associations, and the regulatory authorities of different countries. So by establishing a network of these, we can definitely control the movement of SSFFC drugs across the globe. So that was the aim of IMPACT. Then at the national level, the controlling organization for fake drug is CDSCO, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization. So it is the responsibility of CDSCO to control the fake drugs by getting all the imported medicines tested before before these drugs enter into the market, and this has to be done in coordination with state drugs controller. State drugs controller, they can carry out the inspection raids at the supply chain of the medicines, as well as by quality control testing of the drugs received at ports of different states. So this has to be a joint exercise of CDSCO and state drug controller. Then another interesting step taken by Government of India was to form this committee called as Dr. Mashelkar's committee. So this Dr. Mashelkar's committee was formed in the year 2003 to recommend Government of India how to combat, how to control these SSFFC drugs. So let's see what are the recommendations of this Dr. Mashelkar's committee. So the main recommendations of this committee are as below. So firstly, it recommended the enhancement of penalty and prison terms for sale and manufacturing of counterfeit drugs, which causes grievous hurt or death. That means if you are involved in sale or manufacturing of fake drugs, which causes grievous hurt or death of the patient, then in such cases, the punishment should be life imprisonment or death. Then secondly, it recommended that sale and manufacturing of counterfeit drugs which are not likely to cause consequences as stated in one above. That means even if the fake drug doesn't cause grievous hurt or death, in that case also the case should be registered as cognizable and non-bailable. So if that occurs, then it is imprisonment or death. If that doesn't occur, then the case is registered as cognizable and non-bailable. Then next, there should be penalty for those who are unable to produce document in support of their purchase. So this is basically the focus for pedigree, either manual pedigree or e-pedigree, right? See, so the documented evidence of chain of custody should be maintained. If it is not maintained, then there should be penalty for this also. Then next, constitution of special courts for trial of offences under the Drugs and Cosmetic Act, so that judicial proceedings can be expedited. So it recommended constitution of special courts for violation of such guidelines of Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Then authorization of the police to file prosecution. So police should be authorized to file prosecution. Severe vigilance must be obtained with regular surprise checks. So regular raids should be conducted to identify these fake drugs. And creation of competent national drug labs with high quality of testing facilities for checking counterfeit drugs. The existing labs, that is 7 labs in our country, they are just not sufficient to test all these SSFFC drugs, which are increasing alarmingly in our country. So creation of competent national labs with increased testing capacity is what is recommended by Mashelkar's committee. So definitely these are very good recommendations, and if it is followed, then definitely we can win the battle against these fake drugs. So in conclusion, I would like to say that no doubt SSFFC drugs is a great challenge for a country like us, but it can be controlled by use of technology, by enacting new stringent laws as with the recommendation of Mashelkar's committee, and increasing drug testing capacity and seeking international cooperation. So if we follow all these steps, then definitely we can control this problem of SSFFC drugs. Now you can find more information on the standard websites of CDSCO, FIP, World Health Professionals Alliance, Center for Drug Control and Prevention, Medicines and Health Product Regulatory Agency, European Medicine Agency, and so on. So you can find all these problems of counterfeit drugs in detail on these websites. So that's all for today's webinar. Professionals, if you have any doubts, any questions, any queries, then please drop your questions in the below comments. It will be answered soon after this webinar is done. So thanks for your attention, and goodbye.